Oh my God.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Union Fitness. I got Jared here with me. Today we're going over the squat part 3 of our Union University series. Last week, if you joined us, we talked about
strength and mobility requirements
in the squat. Today we're going to build off of that and we're going to talk about common pains associated with squatting. Now today, you see we got our man Flayson right here. Shout out to Tenzing. We got Flayson, our squat man. He's all crazy looking, and that's because he has shoulder pain and elbow pain. Now you can see we also have knee, hip, and low back on here. We're going to save that for next week. So today we're going to go over associated shoulder pain and elbow pain with the squat, when it usually happens, why it usually happens.
Yeah, so as a physical therapist, I see a lot of people with shoulder pain and elbow pain, and I get a lot of questions about how to fix it when they're squatting. I don't know about you, do you train a lot of people who have shoulder pain and elbow pain?
Typically, if you are a weightlifter, a power lifter, or if you've been just generally training or lifting for an extended amount of time, you're going to experience pain in all these areas, but especially with the squat, shoulder, and elbow. So there's different things that we can do, different exercises to help the mobility, build upon imbalances, but there's also things that you can do to work around those areas if you are getting through those injuries or troubled areas.
All right, so Flayson, as he said, has some shoulder pain. So a couple things about the shoulder. Your shoulder is the most mobile joint in the body, right? So when you're squatting, it still needs to be the most mobile joint in the body. You can't have stiff shoulders and expect to not have pain when you squat. So when someone goes under the bar, we'll have Curtis go under the bar here. We'll have him set up normally. So if you tuned in last week, you saw that we went over the mobility requirements for a squat. Now see, when he gets under, he has appropriate external rotation of his shoulders. His thoracic spine is extended well. He's in a good position here. Commonly when someone has shoulder pain, they are in a really poor position. And this will also go with elbow pain too. So you'll notice the elbows are flared pretty far back, his wrists are bent back, his thoracic spine is going to be flexed a little bit here, and that just puts a lot of pressure through the shoulder. You can go ahead and wrap the bar. So with shoulder pain, commonly, you have a mobility deficit. That's generally going to manifest itself as shoulder external rotation. If you'll watch our video last week, we went over a test for that. If you have good external rotation, it can also manifest as a lack of thoracic extension, right? So if your thoracic spine is stuck in flexion, your shoulder blade can't move as it should. And if your shoulder blade can't move as it should, your shoulder itself, the glenohumeral joint, is not going to be able to move normally. So between those two things, those could be part of your problem. Now, if Kurt can get back under the bar and put himself in good position, so he reacts. Now let's say he's right here and he's about to squat, he gets real tight, and as he does, he's like, I experience a lot of pain in my shoulder from here, right? This is another thing. He has the mobility requirements, but he's experiencing a lot of pain here. You can go ahead and rack it. What is generally happening there is Kurt doesn't know how to stabilize his body underneath of the bar. So what he's doing is he's just cranking down on that bar as hard as he can and putting a ton of stress through his rotator cuff, but he's not activating his lats, he's not activating his trunk at all. He's pretty wobbly through here and just cranking through his shoulders and giving him a false sense of tightness. And then when he squats, his rotator cuffs hate him and he has a lot of shoulder pain. So if that's the case, getting with somebody who can teach you how to appropriately brace yourself, that's going to help. So what are some things you like to do to teach people how to engage their lats?
Yeah, so one of the most important things is through your accessory work, don't just focus on moving the weight, focus on feeling the muscles working and activating them. For example, if you're doing a lat pull down, you don't want to focus on just simply moving the weight throughout the range of motion. You want to do slow controlled where you're taking your shoulder blades and thinking about pulling them, depressing them down into your back pockets. When you do that, you should feel your lat engage. Now, if you're still feeling pain with that, then we can do different mobility exercise for the shoulders. Another one is a lot of times we see, we work a lot of the mirror muscles, we'll call them. Chest, delts, biceps, abs. So we get kind of stuck in this position here, right? So then we have limited mobility through the T-spine and through the shoulders. So what we need to do is we need to focus on strengthening these muscles in order to get everything back where it needs to be. A lot of times this comes in the form of band pull aparts done correctly, not fast, full range of motion with retracting the shoulder blades. Same thing with banded face pulls, bent over rear delt flies, TRX high rows, TRX rear delt flies. Things like that, exercise like that, are all going to help to get you back in this center position. It's going to help get you more centered under the bar and alleviate some pain. Another thing that we can do is while you're working on those, we still want to be able to squat. We don't want to have to stop squatting. This is where rotating your bars can come into play. So the safety squat bar, cambered bar, things like that, even the buffalo bar, are going to help you still get in a pretty good position so you can squat and minimize the shoulder pain while you're figuring those things out. With your actual squat, this is where you're going to want to experiment a little bit. If you are typically used to having the bar in a very low position, then you're going to have to do what you can to be able to continue to squat. You might have to get it a little bit higher, right? Lower isn't always better. You want to have the bar in the best position for your body, for your mechanics, so you can continue to squat with good form. So play with your bar position, play with your hand width, and also your grip. So if you're used to having a very, very narrow grip with your elbows all the way cranked back, this might put extra stress on your shoulders. Whereas if we can get out a little wider, get the bar deeper in the palm with the wrist a little bit straighter, this might cause less pain. So again, work on hand width, hand placement, but also bar position on your back.
Yep, and then another important thing too with shoulder pain, sometimes people will see it only when they're in the hold of a squat, right? Like they feel real stable up at the top, but they go down, and as soon as they go to come back up, they get pain coming up out of the hold. And that goes right off of what Curtis said, like you don't know how to stabilize correctly. You got to stabilize just as much in the bottom as you do when you unrack that bar. I know the height kind of gets out of your head as you start to go down sometimes. You don't think about bracing, but really focusing on that tension through your lats and bracing through your core at the bottom is going to help a lot.
Especially in the bottom, right? It's easy to tell yourself, unrack the bar with tightness, walk the bar out with tightness, and start the squat with tension. But that all goes away when you get in the hole and you're just trying to come up and survive.
You're just dying.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the most important time to focus on the tension, especially through the lats and through the trunk specifically.
Do it on your warm-up sets.
Yeah, exactly. Practice with the bar just like it's your max attack, right?
All right, so we addressed some of Flayson's shoulder issues. He'll now know some things to look at. And again, referencing last week's video, that'll help you guys. So now Flayson is telling us that he's got some elbow pain. So your elbow is a joint made up of 3 different bones, your humerus, your radius, and your ulna. And it has more movements. It's not just a hinge joint. Like you pronate and supinate with it too. But for our sake, the elbow is going to be a hinge joint. And generally when you have a hinge joint, it's meant for more stability than mobility. So when that's the case, your issues with elbow pain are going to be coming elsewhere from your more mobile joints, i.e. the shoulder, the wrist, and even the thoracic spine. So with elbow pain, you need to make sure that you have appropriate wrist mobility, right? So if you just bend your wrist back, making sure that you can get, I like to say 70 degrees, ideally 80 to 90, right? So like my left wrist is pretty good, my right wrist sucks. So I do have right elbow pain sometimes when I squat. So making sure you have good wrist mobility, and then shoulder mobility, you need to make sure you have good external rotation, good shoulder extension. You can even look at internal rotation of your shoulder, and then also that thoracic spine extension. And we went through that last time, looking at a thoracic spine rotation test. It tests about the same thing. So as long as you can address your mobility issues in the shoulder and the wrist, you'll generally start to see an improvement, and the thoracic spine, you'll see an improvement in your elbow pain over time. That being said, that when you're having elbow pain, you don't want to keep making it angry at you when you're squatting. So using variations, right, is a good idea to start doing while you're addressing your elbow pain issues. And didn't you say something about the bench press with the elbow, right?
Yeah, typically we don't always feel our elbow pain when we're squatting. You can and you will, but it's really going to start to flare up a couple days later when you go to bench press. And that's just because when we're squatting, that biceps tendon gets in a really, really stretched position. It gets inflamed. Then we feel it a couple days later when we're actually benching. A couple things that you can do to help that. We talked about this last week. Big stretch incline dumbbell curls. They're going to stretch the biceps tendon and get blood flow there. Another one is a banded elbow distraction. Look up Donnie Thompson elbow distraction on YouTube. And almost like a banded TKE, same thing you would do with a terminal knee extension, you can do the same thing with the elbow. So that's really when you're going to notice a lot of that elbow pain. So if you're thinking it's coming from benching, just stop, take a step back, and think of it and address your squat, see what's going on with your squat.
That ugly position Curtis had set up in previously, if that's what you look like, you got a lot of mobility issues you need to address before you just start popping ibuprofen and trying to train through. You're gonna be in pain when you're 45.
And take into consideration, this might not be you, right? But this is a good amount of people who have been training for any significant amount of time. If this is you, come in and see us. We'll help you. We'll go over everything that we need to go over. We'll get you right. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the low back, the hips, and the knees the same way as we did the elbows and shoulders. And that'll be part 4. So anything to add?
That's it, man.
That's it. Come tune in next Wednesday, and we'll take care of you.
Later.